Okay. My name is Keith Margiotta. I am from Baltimore County, Maryland. I am a firefighter in Baltimore City, so I get a lot of time to be able to go out and hunt and fish and everything, but hunting is very new for me. I've been doing it for 3 years, got introduced just kind of through some friends and kind of always wanted to do it, but nobody really kind of helped me out. And I think the biggest thing is, for me, it's been a lot of more book knowledge, reading, and then getting out into the woods, walking around, looking at tracks, walking with guys that have experience during the off season, looking for bedding areas, which is still real new of kind of how deer work. I always heard, hey, you want to go out after a full moon and everything, and that's when deer are going to be, especially during the rut. And then guys that have a lot of experience are like, no, full moons are horrible because that means the deer can go out and eat all night long and see everything. We don't want any moon. So, so hunting to me, it's become just a very big passion. I am not as experienced as a lot of other guys, but I think just being older, one of the big things is I get to, I'm not going to take a shot on small things. I have the patience to go for the deer that I'm specifically looking for. Yes, like I love game meat. I do a lot of bird hunting, and which has been exciting. And I have 2 properties here in northern Baltimore County that I get to hunt on. One has an extremely large field. We'll call it the Hopkins property on the map. And it has been previously hunted. The very nice part about that property is right below where I'm allowed to hunt is an area where it's absolutely no hunting. The property owner has signs up, but she also has a feeder. So she's drawing a lot of deer in. I've walked this property with friends, and we have jumped a ton of deer, a lot of females, but I've caught a lot of younger males on camera, especially last year towards the end of the season. So I can explain that property out first, and then we can move to the other property.
Sure.
Okay. So looking at the Hopkins property, if you look at the north side of the property on the map, you'll see there's a road that you come in on, and there is the property. It's split up between. There's a long straightaway on the left side of the map, and then it's just very opened up. That entire opened up area is field. This year it will be soybeans. They've already been planted. Last year it was corn.
Hey, Keith, why don't you pop up your Onyx maps so listeners can follow along with you?
Well, I'd say, first of all, hats off to you, because I know a lot of people who would go out one year and not get anything and then want to quit. So, I feel you're pretty determined, and that's a really good thing. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to instill in a newer hunter. So,
right. So yeah, it's I love venison. I'm lucky enough. My wife's cousin is a phenomenal chef in Baltimore, and he kind of gave me a couple tips on cooking venison, which was outstanding. Now, like, I do it exactly the way he taught me, and every chance I get, but like I said, it's one of those things where, you can go out and bang away and knock down deer and everything like that. But for me, it's got to be the right deer, the right animal. I don't want to take something that's too small. I'd rather let it grow, especially a buck. I'd rather let it grow and get the opportunity. And if I miss the opportunity, I miss it. It doesn't really bother me. So like I said, looking at this map, I come in off the road. You can see where it says the Hopkins Alexander on the left side of the map. And you can see the house. Now, that entire area straight down on the left side is all woods. There is no ground vegetation whatsoever. It is all leaves. But the deer travel a lot through there. You can see through my markings, I have a bunch of spots where I have cameras. This is, that in that box is, that's pretty much what it looks like going along that tree line. There are a lot of branches that and heavy trees that kind of block off that woods. They do have a garden that's fenced, a very large garden that's fenced in that area. You know, and it's a great spot to see deer traveling. I've caught a lot on camera. You know, there's 3 ladder stands that were previously there by the owner. So, I mean, this for me, I think would be a great shotgun stand. Anything that's going into the field through that area. I do have to be careful shooting behind me because there are houses just out of the legal range, you know, that you're allowed to hunt. So the previous owner was pretty smart where he put his stands. If you go along the south, you can see where it says Holly Springs Nature, and that entire area is just, you know, huge trees, oaks, maples, cherries. I know there's a couple spruce trees in there, a whole bunch of chestnuts, especially where the 2 properties meet. But there's also a nice stream that runs from the Hopkins Lewis all the way into the Holly Springs property.
Hey, Keith, exit out of that about this location and then zoom out a bit.
Sorry. Zoom out.
Zoom out a touch.
Uh-huh.
So, but you can see, doesn't she own to the east there too?
Yeah, she does. So she owns a lot of land here, and she is very, very, does not like hunters whatsoever, according to the landowners that I'm allowed to hunt on this property, to the point where a friend of theirs was having trees, you know, she asked for trees to be taken down, and he, who is not a hunter, said, hey, you have a lot of deer here because there's a lot of rubs, you need to protect the trees, and she completely freaked out on it. And it's like, get out of here, take your money, don't ever come back type thing. So, but yes, we've seen a lot of deer coming through. I have a camera on this, the one tiny corner where her 2 properties meet. If you can see my cursor right in here. So I have a camera there, and it's just kind of this little, a little cul-de-sac of just flat area. It's a high traveled area, a lot of deer in there. Last year, there was a 8-point buck that I caught on camera in the last week. It was the first time I caught him. And he was pushing probably 5 or 6 deer around, anywhere from maybe a year to 3 years old. You know, most of the deer were either 3 or 4 points or larger. But they come and feed there. I left stuff out all winter long for them, dropped the mineral block, and it was gone in April when I went back. I put another one out. That one's gone as well. So, but there's every day I'm catching does, a lot of does on camera. I've yet to catch a buck on that property right now. So, but if there's does, there's got to be bucks around. That's what I've always heard.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. My property kind of works the same way. I have does upon does upon does, and then, you know, once late October, early November hits, I'm starting to see bucks all over the place.
Right. So I'm going to zoom in real quick, so you can see where there's a camera, and then that's actually in the box. What you can see there, that's that flat land, that little cul-de-sac. And like I said, it's a high travel land area. I have a stand that is literally right next to the camera, and it's down at the bottom of a hill where you can see this. There's another stand that I've kind of put to the right, or a little a waymark. That's what the field looks like up top, on top of the hill. So there's 2 stands real close to each other, you know, and I've caught a lot of deer on camera up there, but not as much, surprisingly, down at the bottom of the hill. You know, it's a brand new property for me to hunt. I have a blue mark. If you look to the right of the map, we've jumped a herd of about 20 to 25 deer on this blue mark over here a couple different times. I usually like to walk the property, see what's going on. My biggest thing is when I come into this property, when I hunted it twice last year. I usually walk straight down from the house. I walk into where, if you're looking at the property, you can kind of see like a little green area right in the middle there. That's actually a little bit of swampy land. It's real soft, marshy, surprisingly. So I walk straight down there and then cut right over to where that stand is in that little cul-de-sac. I have yet to hunt the upper stand, and I've only hunted at night or in the early evening over there. And I think I've been there maybe 2-3 times. So, the big thing is, and listening to the podcast, there's so much that I've learned with, thermals and wind and everything. And as a new hunter, it's, I know that I'm blowing the opportunity a lot. And it's just, I think the big thing for like myself and any new hunter is learning like when to go, when not to go, ways to get into a property, and that's one of the things that I have to really work on, I think.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So I was actually just going to ask you that, Keith. So when you are entering this stand over here, does this get tall grass in it? And then I was going to ask you if it's marshy, because it looks like a little bit of a drainage in there.
Yeah, it is marshy right through there, and that's, throughout the year. Even on the hot days, you'll still feel the ground a little bit wet. And it's the field kind of has this small elevation where it goes up and then it goes flat across.
Right.
But that's and you get real high grass. We're talking almost waist level in some spots.
Okay.
I don't think that the farmer, because the owners lease the land to a farmer for crops, and I don't think he ever takes his tractor out there to cut it. So
the reason that I brought that up was you'll get basically an airflow going right through that drainage.
Okay.
This is going to be thermals, especially in the evening, pulling down this direction in behind you.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've noticed this in the past, but any deer that you have back here, they're going to move up into this area and basically be able to scent check this entire field from this location right here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in the evenings, have you ever had or heard deer blowing back in here?
No, surprisingly, I haven't. It's been, most of the time it's been pretty quiet. Like I said, I've only hunted this 3 times. But like I said, we know there's deer there, obviously, because they're on camera, but I've never heard any sounds whatsoever, whether it's males or females or anything. The most I hear is blue jays out there.
So I think the stand location that you got there is really good.
Sure.
However, for access, you're going to need like a pretty hard wind direction going that way, so that your scent's blowing over into here, into these houses and stuff.
Okay.
That way, you're not getting a scent direction going this way.
Okay.
Brian, would you concur with that setup there? Have you noticed that drainages, especially in like hilly fields like that, always seem to pull thermals in the evenings?
Oh yeah, I've definitely noticed that, and you could actually, maybe next time you're there, even especially now since it's warmer, pay attention when you go out there. You'll actually be able to feel that cooler air in the evening, blowing in that direction if you walk down that. I've had that happen to me multiple times.
Okay, that's good to know.
So,
because that what's kind of happening there, it's not just thermals, but that the water holds heat, and it holds its temperature a lot better than air. So in the mornings, it takes the water, even if it's a swampy type situation, not even a lake, but you'll see the same effects, streams, lakes, whatever, but the water holds its temperature a lot better than air. So as the air warms up, your water's still cool in the morning, and then it's vice versa in the evening. as the air cools, that water is still warm because it's not really flowing. It's kind of sitting there because it's more of a swamp. So that hot air and the hot, warmer water with the cooler air is going to mix and start creating, that thermal circulation that Torrin's talking about.
Okay. Now, would you advise, I mean, if on the right side of the property, I mean, Torrin, you and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, working my way down that kind of like road. So if let me share my screen real quick. Yeah. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
All right. So where this blue mark is, there's that kind of like dirt road. I have no problem, I'll park at the house and then cut across the northern part of that field, and then working down the road and then slipping in through the woods there, coming across the field here. The only problem is this is where we've seen a lot of deer, late in the evening when we've kind of walked out there. And I know that I just don't want to jump them up there and kind of waste the day. I mean, I usually try to get in if I'm going to hunt in the evening. I'm in the stand usually by 1:30, no later, just to get settled in and kind of get everything set up.
When you're seeing the deer in there, are they in the field or are they bedded in that tree line?
They're in the tree line over by the where that blue marker is, and even sometimes between the two properties, there's a small fence over here right along the tree line. But there is an opening right in this corner here. And so we've seen them kind of run through there or over the fence, or but then they take off towards this horse farm, all the way to the right where there's another there's another blue marker, way over here. We see them, they take off and they're in that field and they're gone. So, that's one of those things, do I come down the road there, or do I try to cut through the field, or, my biggest thing is getting in there, making sure that they don't hear me, smell me, see me, everything, so that I can have success this year, especially during the rut. I just think that, I know Torrin, you and I have talked about it a little bit. That might be a great time to get in there and stuff. And I know that they're moving around. They were moving around late season, it's pretty crazy how much activity there was. So yeah, I constantly am carrying around just it's one of those things, just I think from watching shows and these guys out west, always look to see what you're walking into. And I know when I hit the field, both on this property and then the other property, I'm always looking out to see what's going on before I go in. This field, I look to see if there's any geese. Because I know that we were going to hunt geese this year on it. So it's always, because the reservoir, Pretty Boy Reservoir is really close to this area. So, which is a huge area to hunt. And the geese are there constantly. So, I'm always looking for that, looking for any other animals, foxes, obviously deer. My biggest thing is if something notices me coming in, it can throw stuff off, the rest of the area off. So yeah, if I come down the driveway, if I go to the top of that hill, I can glass the entire hill, and see what's there before anything else notices me, usually. It's maybe 100 yards to get up top. And they do have they have a kind of a storage area. So it wouldn't be uncommon for any animals to see, the landowners, going over there. They have actually 3 or 4 beehives up top there. So I think it would be a common thing for animals to go, oh, hey, somebody's out, a couple 100 yards away. So I don't think that'd be a problem for me to glass it at any time, whether it's early in the morning or early evening.
In between the trees there.
So it's if you're walking down the service road, Southland Service Road, on the left side, there's a lot of, I'd say, pretty good trees, some pines, some just, smaller trees, hedges in some areas. But the right side, you actually have to go up a hill to be able to get on top of the hill. You have to go a good 10 yards kind of up a hill. Not that much of an incline, but you can't just see right on top. You have to kind of creep up and then you can see up top there. So, and that we've gotten busted when we've walked over there coming down the hill, and that's where the deer see us and they're gone. So, which is, like I said, we know they're there. The biggest thing is trying to get into, the stands, especially along that lower half of the property. Getting into the stands along the woods line, that's not a problem. I mean, it's a clear shot, and there is a guy that hunts on the property next, just on the opposite side there. He's got a feeder up, but yeah, like I said, the biggest thing in this area is just trying to slip in without anything noticing, without jumping anything. And the deer have been very random over there, especially in the last month and a half. It's not like they're coming, hey, I'm coming in the morning or coming in, late. They are 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever, which has been kind of unusual. I haven't really seen, last year when I put stuff up, they were very specific times when they come in. They would come in from 4:30 until about 6, and then they were gone. And then you'd see them coming late at 10 to 12, gone. But this year, I don't know what it is. They're there. I can't even track them. I mean, they're all over the place, and they're all different ages, fawns to really mature does. So we're just, trying to figure out what's going on down there.
Have you ever hunted this corner down in here?
No. There is a stand there, and that's actually, that corner has an opening to let deer through. And I've caught a lot moving through there, but I've never hunted there.
See, I would be curious to see what happens here.
On the left side of your little kind of butterfly wing, there's a feeder that's pretty close, probably within, I don't know, if those things are a couple hundred yards big, there's probably a feeder within 150 yards of the stand of that marker that I have. But they do move through that area. It's one of the only openings in that area that's just a clean opening, no big trees down or anything like that.
The reason that I brought that up is you have a pretty hard 90-degree angle to the west,
right,
that then attaches to all this timber in here with all these houses and pockets and stuff like that.
Right.
I bet you that this would be a really, really good location. You may be down too far you may be up too far, up to the north too far with your camera.
Okay.
They may be hooking to the west earlier.
Okay.
But I bet pre-rut that would be a great stand location.
All right.
And then you got water here, but this all has to be phenomenal bedding in
right
here. That I guarantee you, bucks are cruising through here. It looks like you got a little ridge through here that you could pretty much get on.
Okay.
What's this road like? Is this a pretty busy road or?
No, not really. I mean, it's buddy of mine lives actually not too far away from that road, and guy I work with, and when we're hanging out, you see a lot of deer when you're traveling that road. It's not like a major road where oh, I'm gonna go speeding through. It's like, hey, I have to keep my eyes peeled, especially during the rut, because they are stupid all through that area.
Right.
A lot of accidents in that area. So, but you'll see them, high on the side of the road. You see them in the fields. I mean, there's a couple fields that what was it? Last day last year, hunting season. I didn't get anything. I'm driving home, and of course, I look to the right. Yeah, there's 5 or 6 large bucks, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You guys are just hanging out over here, and come over here with me. Your new friend." But yeah, it's not that busy. I mean, it's well traveled, but it's not like a
nothing
major.
for them to just cross over. It's not like I saw it said State Highway 25, so I was wondering if it's like an actual highway, major road.
No, 2-lane road. That's
Okay.
it. So, yeah, it's just kind of a high. I don't want to take an 83 or a 95 or, even a 4-lane road,
Gotcha.
200 side. It's,
Brian, what do you think is going to be the most likely travel movement on this property as far as early season, pre-rut, rut, and then late season?
So I think I'm back. Can you hear me now?
yeah.
Yep, I can hear you.
Welcome back.
Okay, perfect. So kind of my thoughts are, so what intrigues me about this property is deer typically they need food, water, and protection, right?
Right.
So you have Compass Run. Let me share here. So you have Compass Run that kind of flows through here.
Right.
You have this property to the south and to the southeast where there's strictly no hunting,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, none whatsoever.
And you have this property here that you're actually hunting on that's full of food.
Yeah.
So, like Torn said, there's a pretty good travel corridor likely through this area as well, especially as they come out to get food. And then they like to hang out in this area as well. So, that leads me to believe that, they're using this and they're using this quite frequently, to eat in all these different places. They have this water here and they have good protection all throughout here. So your best times are obviously going to be first thing in the morning and then right before dark when, they're coming out to feed.
Okay.
So I think pretty much most of the time that's what they're going to be doing, especially before the rut in early season and as it leads up to the rut.
Okay. Now, on this property, there's, especially on that left side, there's kind of like that long finger that just kind of goes down right where you had your cursor. I haven't put a camera or anything like down there. I've kind of stayed away from that because it's so thin, and my biggest thing is I don't want to get caught by that one property owner down in there. But just kind of where that stream is, I was thinking maybe I should at least put a camera there to see what's going on, what's maybe traveling down there. And I didn't know what you guys were thinking about that. Because like I said, the guy that's just to the left of this property that has the pond, they hunt as well. So, yep. So they hunt as well. So obviously they're pulling stuff, I think, with the water, but I think it would be nice to know if, are the deer moving along the stream, or are they coming up to the field? So I didn't know if I should have a camera. I know I've caught them cutting through that major corner where there's no trees, but it's not as many as, that really hot corner where the two stands are real close, right? So yeah, down in there. Yeah, that area right there, that's actually a little swampy also. There's one tree right in the middle of the field there. Yep. And you can see, that area, high grass, almost waist level in some spots. I took my kids, we walked down there when I was changing batteries in one of the cameras, and I didn't realize that my son was wearing sneakers and not his boots, and he found out the hard way that it's a wet area. So I told him, I was like, well, looks like we got to get your boots and everything.
Brian, where would your stand locations be?
My stand would be probably right in here. I'd put one right there. And I would put one, let me look at the topo here. So is this the highest part of the field or the lowest?
Highest part.
Highest part, and it drops down here.
Yeah, it's a very gradual
Gotcha. So I think this is one of your key spots here. I think you have a great spot also right in here, but like you said, getting to it could be quite difficult. Now,
Right.
if your stand is right here, you could walk this woods all the way down and stay protected from the wide open field, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you don't have that, as bad of a, this wind's probably, traveling like this, right?
Yep.
So over here, it's acting pretty differently. So you could park at this house and even walk this edge down and come right here.
Okay.
And you still have the visibility of this really good area, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, and then what's this distance? So that's like 150 yards. So that's definitely shotgun range for sure.
Right.
But at the same time too, I really feel they're traveling through here, or, they're coming up through this way as well.
Right.
So I think you have your best shot of getting somewhere without being detected, while, also having an area where there's probably high deer traffic right in this area right here.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with Brian. Honestly, like, if you could get into this, like, this would be your money zone, I think. If you get into where Brian said about that creek,
Right.
like, they're probably traveling right through here. But that's
Sure.
that sliver. And then you got to worry about, if you do shoot some, if it's going over here or if it's going on to that other property.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think if it's with a bow and nobody's lurking around, I think slipping over and getting it. But
right.
during shotgun, they're going to be a lot. I think the landowners going to be a lot more aware that people are out there. But I don't think anybody's really hunted on that property in a couple of years, because I know that house was up for sale, and friends of ours just got lucky enough to get it. So
now,
Yeah.
another thing too, if you can get there early, I'm a huge proponent. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I get really excited about hunting, and especially early on, I am out in the woods at like 4 a.m. just because I'm really excited. If they're not actually bedding in this area where you said you're seeing a lot of them, they're just kind of there, right?
right.
This hedgerow here, are there like larger sized trees that you could even put a stand in this area here?
No, nothing that big.
Nothing that big.
No,
What about a ground blind or something?
definitely a ground blind.
Because if there's always a high concentration of deer here and you're willing to get there early enough, it might be worth it to try out something like that as well. Typically us archery hunters get obsessed with getting up into a tree, and
Right.
there are definitely a lot of advantages to it.
Right.
But the ground blind is an option as well.
Okay.
I've killed deer before on the ground, no problem with the bow. So something to think about.
I like that. That's actually a good idea, because that means I can go right down that kind of little dirt road right there and slip in.
Now you have to make sure that you have a northwest wind there.
Okay.
You don't want to come in with the wind blowing from the northeast.
Okay.
Otherwise, that whole set will be blown.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely right there. And what you need to really start paying attention to before you go out is that wind, or even right when you get out there, you'll feel it. What direction is it going? And you could definitely play, which spot you want to go to based off of that. Or maybe the wind's not cooperating at all to, hunt this property. And, it sounds like we have other options as well. So,
yeah, which is nice because that the other property is that's definitely a mixed bag over there of just everything and anything you can get, which is nice. Which if you want, we can take a look at that one and stuff and
yeah, I was gonna say that's a perfect segue to check out that other property.
All right, let me get that.
What's the drive time between the two, do you think?
20 minutes maybe, depending on traffic and stuff like that. There's yeah, I mean it's a lot of back roads to get there. I mean, I'm looking at right now, looking at
Can you guys hear the fire trucks going by and the ambulances?
I can.
Jeez.
So they get something going on over there.
Yeah, it's nonstop sometimes.
So you guys can see my screen right now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I can. Yep.
All right. So yeah, I mean it's a good hike. Cut through the reservoir. You have to pretty much cut through the reservoir, which isn't that bad. I would come back towards my house and then shoot up 83. I think that's the fastest way. Maybe 20, 30 minutes, depending on what traffic's looking like. And then of course weather conditions and everything like that. And get it would be one of those, if I got to the first property at 4 a.m. and realize, hey, this isn't going to work, I got to hustle and to get to the other one. But I mean, it's doable. I definitely think you could do it. And then depending on which stand I'm going to go into on this other property, that's the decision that's going to have to be made. Hopefully, conditions are better over there depending on where it is. So I'll go.
I think on this property you have a lot more options too.
There are.
You can set up.
This property
looks like there's a lot of terrain variation.
Get
Get used to putting that hybrid map up and that topo map rather than just the satellite.
Okay.
That'll start thinking in terms of your terrain and elevations and all that, and that's going to start helping you out some more too.
Okay. So
there in the bottom right. There you go.
Yeah. So just looking at this right now, you can kind of see a little bit of what the property is like. And obviously you can see I have a ton of marks on this property of where different things are. And then I know Torrin has kind of given some stuff. But I'm gonna just kind of zoom in and kind of give you how I come in. So I swing down, I come up, and then there's in the green box here, this is the one part of the property. This field is maybe about 10 acres. I believe this year's corn for that field. There are 2 stands that you can see. There's this stand right here, which is one corner. There's a second stand that I just tagged on. That's in the woods a little bit. But this corner right here, that's a hot corner. The gentleman, I hunt with 2 other guys on this property. Both of them have more than 90 years of experience hunting. One is like 75, and he's a good old boy. And he's one of the guys that really got me into hunting, trying to take care of me, making sure even my first day out. They put me in this stand right here. And before we even got there, he's like, do you have a harness and everything? I was like, yes. He's like, get it on, get up in that stand, leave everything else on the ground on a string to pull up and get secured and stuff. So, which was stuff for me, I didn't know about. I just knew, hey, you need a safety harness when you go up in a tree. And I saw a deer, but just nothing within my range. And, but we went out and he and his son both got something. It was during shotgun season. I was using a bow. But that field will get a lot. I mean, you walk through that field after everything's been harvested and there are so many tracks. majority of the time on this property, the deer come this area where the giant butterfly is. They come right through where that point is. Like it was kind of amazing when you put that. I started thinking, I'm like, wow, because there's a path that goes right by that one stand, and literally he knocks down Chuck, the senior of the two gentlemen. He knocks down a ton of deer over here. But it's just, that field I've driven up in early evening and seen them, when I have a friend that lives up the street that has acres. And when I'm hung out with him, I look out the field and they're out there. Even early in the morning during shotgun season, before it's first light, you can see the eyes as you're driving up. But like I said, this field, it really is a mixed bag. If you look at the field here, usually what happens is we park over by the barn right there. And then it's kind of depends on where you're going to hunt. I usually will walk the edge of the field towards the road and then straight down, or the outside, depending on which stand I'm going to hunt. I do hunt the field sometimes, especially during shotgun, because there are a lot of deer that we'll catch. But my main stand, I have two, are this yellow one right here, which is I don't hunt. If Chuck is not with me, I go to my stand. If he's with me, I go to a completely different one. That yellow stand, that yellow mark, to the right of it is all swamp area. Thick, nasty, just swamp, skunk cabbage, everything. And that everything in front of me is the same thing. You'll have real soft, just kind of heavy vegetation. And then it's just all these little mini streams. So it's a big area where we see a lot of deer, catch a lot of deer on camera. They've always been outside of my range for the most part for bow season. And a lot of times what happens is they'll come up and they'll slip behind me. And then if Chuck is there, he gets them. Or if I'm not there, I know they come right by his stand is like the most perfect spot. I just happen to put mine there to kind of give me a little bit closer to where they are. But that kind of messed up area right here, that's the heavy, nasty, thick swamp area. We get a ton of deer that we've seen in that area. I think it's a great bedding area for them. This woods of the entire property is a kind of cornucopia of different types of trees. You have the big oaks, lots of maple trees, a couple birch trees slipped in there, a lot of cherry trees. They are and they're not small. They are 25 to 30 inch, just monsters. There is very little ground growth in there. You might see it in a couple of pockets and stuff like that. But there is, like I said, you walk and all you're hearing is the crunching of those leaves, which is kind of nice when you hear it and you're like, is that a squirrel or is that a deer? 90% of the time for me, it's always a squirrel. So, if you go, if you come here north to this stand right here, that's the one that I really want to take a shot on. A lot of deer, but they go, there's that field is actually a horse farm. You can see it as clear as day from the stand. The stand's not bad. There's not a lot of cover, but my friend David, who's the other guy I hunt with, he's gotten a lot of deer out of there. And a lot of times they move between us. Sometimes, depending on what's going on with the wind, they'll get caught between the two of us. And it's kind of like, all right, which way are they going to go? And they've always seemed to go towards David, and that's where they get banged. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, all right, great. We got a deer for today. And then it's usually, then we'll leave it. Whoever usually gets the deer first, the other guy, we kind of split the meat and stuff, which has been nice. But there are good sized bucks up there. He had an 8-point last year, real ugly rack, but it was a good sized buck. Body wise, had to be over 200 pounds, which was nice. But we've, kind of got to just, like I said, and this upper half of the property is very, very wide open. You can see, you can see 150, 200 yards without a problem. You can see anything that moves. It's the other side of this property that's interesting. Now, Torin, you had boxed off an area, down. Let me screen share that real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh. So this area right here that's kind of in the box, I have another stand down there. I have, this was the stand that I was going to try to teach my son how to hunt from, get him used to being out. So it's a little double stand. There's a pretty good creek back there, a lot of vegetation, but this is also a great shotgun stand because when Chuck is in his stand and I want to hunt shotgun, I'll go to this stand. It's out of his range. He can't turn that far back. It looks like he can, but he really can't get a shot because there's a lot of big trees there. But when it is late season shotgun, it is completely opened up, except for where I am. I'm pretty hidden, kind of tucked in this tree with a lot of vines. But well-traveled area. Went back there this year to put a camera up, and my mineral block that I put out late season, not only was it completely gone, there must have been an 18-inch hole of them trying to dig down in 2 different spots. So obviously they have got to be, showing up because I don't think anything else is digging for minerals.
So yeah, there's a creek down there, correct?
Yes, it's a good creek. It's a good creek, and it's got only 1 or 2 spots that are real low to easy crossover. Everything is kind of like a drop down, like a good 4-foot drop down. So
hit the topo and then zoom in on that spot and see if it shows up on the map. I can't remember if it shows up on the map or not. Yeah, there you can see for the listeners and stuff where that creek's going through.
Yeah, and that's this is where my stand in. It is very close. That's what the vegetation actually looks like right now. But when it is late season, that is gone, and they tear that area up really well. Which is I think there's. They just, I don't know what it is, but that's a high traffic area. But I only put that stand in, I think it was after the rut. A buddy of mine put it up, and that was mostly to kind of teach my son, like, hey, just the simple basics that even I'm learning, being quiet, stuff like that. Now I want to the other side of this property. This is the other interesting part. Down here, this boxed area. This is, man, if you look at, let me try to zoom in for you. The elevation changes is ridiculous here. I mean, it is a steep hill, going from where that black stand is actually a really messed up stand. I've used it once. I'm too scared to use it twice. It's just not locked on. And I'm even afraid to try to go up and fix it. It's an old stand that was there by a previous owner. The area just north of it, it used to be about half of it, probably where that camera is. If you cut it in half, was an old Christmas tree farm.
Switch over to the hybrid.
Got it.
And then zoom in.
So this is an old Christmas tree farm in here. But half of that is now gone. They wanted to clean it out, and so that they can maybe, hey, we're gonna start a Christmas tree farm and everything there, and they've cut down a lot of it there. But that's a high traffic area. I mean, you can see multiple paths where they come in, they kind of converge, they eat. I've thrown corn down there just to see what I can get, and you can see them. They show up. But the only issue with this side is both to this homeowner here and the one down here, both of them hunt. And then this field right here to the south, the guys, they do a drive on that field once or twice a year. So it's always, when am I going to get in there and everything. So what I've kind of done is the homeowner here, very nice guy. He lets me cut down that purple line. He's got a path that he's cut with a 4-wheeler. he has 2 stands. He has one on his property and one that's that you can see. I've marked it right here. That is literally right on the border, and it's perfect. It's right by this a stream. Sorry. Yeah, this is the stream that kind of runs through, and it's some spots it's real low, but right where he has that stand, it's very just it kind of dips down, goes flat for about 10 yards, and then the elevation starts to change to go back up. And he's in a perfect spot. He's got a camera there, and I've seen him when I've kind of gone down the hill, and then I've had to kind of walk down the stream the other way to get back towards this other section that I've hunted, which is just right on the edge of the field. I know the camera where the camera placement is, but that's right there. That's you can see a lot of clear area in the woods. You're elevated. You're on a huge rock pile, but it's covered by briars on 90% of it. Big circle, but you can see everything. So great for a bow, great for a shotgun. But the biggest thing is trying to get down there, without anything seeing you and or smelling you. And thermals, I think, would be all over the place for me. So, I mean, any recommendation I can get for either spot would be great. So I didn't know what you guys thought for here.
Go ahead, Brian. You do your breakdown, and then I'll kind of. Keith and I already talked about the spot, but I'll just go through it again for the listeners. Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. So you were saying this area was the swamp area?
There we go.
There we go.
The blue circle?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's some nasty stuff.
Yeah. So this is where they are.
Okay.
All day. That's what I'm thinking. Along with, if this is still pretty thick from the Christmas tree farm, it is pretty close to the road too, but those thicker areas is where they're hanging out most of the day.
Okay.
And I feel like they like this spot because they have a good, area to, lay down in here and sniff around, looking for scents that they don't typically like, because
Sure.
you have the elevations here, and you have the wind that could, be pretty variable in that area,
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that's tough for me, especially in archery season, is hunting in a cornfield.
Sure.
Because these deer will come into this cornfield, and you said, there's tracks all over, because they're basically, while that corn is up and high and they're concealed, they're kind of living in there because they have all the food they want and they have the cover they want too. So that could be a problem during archery season, especially when the corn is up. Now, when it's cut and there's, remnants of corn and everything all throughout here, definitely a good spot in my opinion. And you said this is typically where you go right here?
Yeah, that's the spot that I go. It's a little bit off. I actually have to cross over just a small little stream. That area is kind of like the lower end of that swampy area.
Okay. Gotcha. So, I mean, this is a perfect scenario for them as they, hang out in this swamp most of the day, and then they could, come right down and start feeding for the evenings or early in the mornings, and then kind of go that way. And then you also have what I feel is another pretty good travel corridor in this area as well with this stream.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of opens up in this area too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's vegetation there. I mean, big trees. I mean, there's some ground growth.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the most interesting thing about I think this entire property is the fact that it's large trees and it hasn't been None of them have been harvested. I mean, like I said, we're talking, big monsters. And ground growth, yeah, there's a little bit of concealment, a lot of briar stuff. That's the stuff that's coming up. Getting a deer down there would be great. One of the reasons that I think I don't hunt it a lot is getting the deer out. Just because that hill, that hill's kind of a pain to drag anything up. Even at the end of the day when you're tired and you're like, oh, I gotta walk up this hill. I can't imagine dragging a 150-pound deer up there without help.
Yeah. For sure.
But it's a great, it's a nice area. I mean, that stream is, I always see tracks when I'm walking down there, whether early in the morning or early evening.
Yeah. I mean, I would be trying to come down through here, maybe right in this area, right in here. Or, I mean, if you're seeing deer here too, it's just getting there could be a little tricky,
Right.
depending on the time of day. Now, you said typically when you come into this upper area, you're parking at the barn.
Yeah. Yep. We always park at the barn. Now I have permission to park up the house where you can see with the pool, and work my way in that upper half of the property. But we usually hunt this kind of one corner because that's where we see a lot of deer. I've had friends go up to past the house, park in the house, with climbers, and they've seen deer, but it's very, very few and far between.
Gotcha. Now, Torin, this purple line that you sent here.
Yeah.
Is that your proposed access into this area?
Correct.
Because that's exactly how I would try and get into this area. I would avoid, messing around over here.
Okay.
Personally. So I'm with you there, that I think this is probably your best route in, because these deer are sitting here for a reason, because it's thick and they could, smell you pretty easily if you're coming up through this way. The wind is likely not going to be blowing, typically in this direction. Let me draw it. Oh, that's not what I want.
Zoom out a touch too, Brian.
Yeah, that's better. Because you have this hill over here. Let's put the topo on for a second. You have this low-lying area right here, and then it, so you're in a valley. But like what you have here is probably typical in this direction, right?
Right.
So, you have a very good chance of getting them. If they're bedded down in this area, they're gonna try and shoot out. Whereas if you're coming in from over here, you're not likely gonna have a wind in this direction because of this hillside based on the time of day, right?
Sure.
So I'm with Torin here, as I would try and come in through this purple line and get a little bit above them
and then work my way down. Okay. Yeah, there is definitely a hill. If I were to come on that side, there is definitely a hill to move down. Especially during during shotgun season.
Mm-hmm.
Anything coming out of that area, that hill would give a clean vantage point.
This one's a little tough. Torin, why don't you go ahead and I'll think about it some more.
Okay. So here's basically my setup for this situation. This is what it really intrigues me, is these knobs up here. So you basically have this field up here, this secluded field with all this timber surrounded by it.
Right.
So I think you're going to get a lot of daytime activity messing around up here, and then they'll start filtering down into these other fields, these other food sources, even down into here,
Okay.
So we had talked about this before. I have these 3 waypoints here marked as potential bedding areas where they'll get thermals coming up, be able to smell everything down below them.
Okay.
So this is the tricky part for this. You almost have to get in here late, and then you can hunt these edges if you're specifically targeting bucks, getting them coming down these edges out to the food.
Okay.
You have this little hollow draw here that they'll come down as well. This is off property, so that's not able to, you're not able to hunt that. I mean, Brian reiterated what I kind of had in mind, pretty much the exact same thing. You're going to have travel going this way potentially. This is your bedding area. And then with the wind based on the terrain, this is your entrance route. And if you can sneak down into here somewhere, good, but I wouldn't really push it. Eventually, sooner or later, if you pick your spots, pick your hunts right, they're going to move back and forth through this section here, either from this field to this field or this field to this field, especially in the pre-rut. You'll get bucks that are going to be pushing does through this section here.
Okay.
The butterflies are going to be your pinch points going from large tracts of timber to large tracts of timber. So
Okay.
if we look at it on a large scale, again, this is pre-rut, rut. This is where the bucks are going to want to be, cruise for does. This is where the bucks are going to want to be to cruise and check for does. These are your access routes on how to get there. Now, I think this one's off property, so we can pretty much ignore that. Now, this is kind of what I had in mind, Brian, for this. This whole thing just reminds me of kind of like suburbs hunting. So
Yeah.
I don't really think that you'll have an issue with deer bedding literally right off the road here and just watching cars go by and watching people walk in their backyards and do that kind of stuff.
That's true. I mean, especially if it's thick from being a Christmas tree farm, that's
Right.
That's a pretty good area to be in, especially, even early on in the season when it's still warm.
Yep.
They want a cool place, and that area is going to be really shaded, and you're going to see them hanging out there most of the day.
Okay.
Yep. I 100% agree with Brian. The tricky part is kind of like you said, you have this path in here.
Yep.
You just gonna have to play it on the wind, what the wind's doing. But I would get right on the transition lines like we talked about before, Keith, between thick cover and the drop off.
Okay. Yeah, that boxed in area, that's a pretty well traveled path. Like the last 3 years. I mean, you walk down and you're constantly seeing rubs right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Where that black marker for the stand is, it's a great spot. It's just getting ready to go down the hill. But I would have to put a ground blind in somewhere right in there, or put a different stand up, because that thing is just, it's on its last leg, and that last leg is already crippled. So
you don't have a climber stand?
I do. I actually just got it last year, but I haven't I haven't had a chance to use it because I'm gotten used to ladder stands. And a buddy of mine, when I got it, he was like, "Have you used one of these?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I just know that it'd be a lot easier, especially with the wind and depending on where I'm gonna hunt and stuff." And his big recommendation was, figure out the multiple trees that are going to be easy to get that thing onto and get up high. if you have to put it on a tree and start climbing and you got to cut branches down, but during the off season, get it done.
Yeah, I completely rely on my climber when I'm hunting. I rarely ever use a ladder stand actually.
Okay.
You have time to figure it out, man. I'd be learning how to climb up and down in that thing and looking at your limitations on that. I think they're pretty invaluable. I mean, sometimes too, you might set up on one of these ladder stands, and like you were saying, one of your biggest problems is that the deer are just a tad too far for you with the bow.
Yeah.
And if they're consistently that too far from the bow with your climber, it's nothing to move 50 or 80 yards over closer to where you're constantly seeing them travel.
Okay.
Whereas with the ladder stand, you're more so stuck there, right?
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been trying to get used to, so I have next to my house, I have 200 acres of farmland that I'm allowed to hunt on. And then behind my house, there's probably about 5 acres of woods. It used to be very clear, used to be kind of like what this property has, no ground growth. And then we took down 30 something trees, and it is like walking through the jungles of Vietnam. I mean, it is thick and just briars, and we see deer all the time back there. I had a camera up there last year, and every single night they were hitting this feeder, and it was mostly for my kids to be able to see. But we've just been seeing a lot more deer right behind our house because of this. But yeah, I've been trying to get used to the climber of going up higher and higher. I'm like, and it's funny because, as a firefighter, like climbing ladders is not a problem. But
Yeah.
here, I'm attached to this climber, which is attached to a tree, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's as safe as high this, 27-ton truck, with a giant ladder putting me exactly where I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just getting comfortable and climbing it, and then getting set up and everything. And, and then obviously shooting a bow or shooting a shotgun from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. I'm a little skeptical about coming in on this purple line, honestly. Okay. Especially, if it's super thick in this area, you might be able to, sneak on by them. But if it were me, I may be coming down.
I think you don't have access that way, right?
No, I mean, I know the guy is very nice, but my biggest thing is I don't want to mess with his kind of.
Oh, because you said his stand's right here.
He's that red dot actually is his stand just on the property on the stream.
Right here.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. And then he's got one maybe 100 yards up to the left. Probably what would be 10 o'clock if you're looking straight at that dot up on the hill. He's got a double stand up there.
Oh, okay. Somewhere around here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit lower. Yeah, right about there. So it's, but I've seen him once down there, and it was during shotgun, and I was heading towards the field to see if I could get something that was going to, run across the field and everything.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, yeah, but I have, he's very nice, and he's like, I got a path and everything. And if you have an issue or something like that, you're more than welcome to come up, and I can try to give you a hand with whatever it is. But a lot of times I usually, if I go to this property, it's with the two guys that I normally hunt with on the property or a friend of mine. We kind of try to go up. I like hunting with having somebody else when I'm hunting. It's always nice. Especially somebody that's a lot more experienced that we could talk about it after.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
The other thing, like, that you might just only want to use that for is a situation where you have high winds.
Sure.
That you're going to be safe. They're not going to hear you. 15 mile per hour winds.
Okay.
It's a little hairy getting in a tree when it's like that, but you might only need to get 15 feet up and you're fine. You know what I mean? Look for a tree that has a real nice backdrop behind you, plenty of cover, and you don't have to get up super high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with you, Brian. It's sketch. That whole access is sketch, but
yeah,
it's really intriguing to me too. I think that's a really good spot.
Gosh,
Yeah, right.
if you could come in from like this way or
Oh
something,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd kill it. I feel like every time you're hopping down here, you're messing with them.
Yeah, usually I'll follow that purple line all the way down to the field. And then I move right along the edge and kind of go to where it kicks out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really good, like I said, there's a big rock pile, huge tree that kind of gives protection from the elements and everything. And I usually kind of sit right on that rock pile, and just, right. Yeah, it's pretty much right about there. And it gives me access to, I can see the entire field and then see that entire kind of wooded area because it looks down on it.
Gotcha.
I've had no luck there, unfortunately. I know
But
that
you can't hunt this field, or you can.
technically no, but the way I look at it is if they're crossing the field, the minute they get into my area, then I can. Once they cross that line and stuff like that, where if I can see them, I can just sit there and kind of watch them,
But you haven't seen them in this field yet.
No, but they do deer drive in that field.
Gotcha.
So a lot, they do it, if I'm right, twice a year. I think it's.
And this is primarily corn?
Let's see, this should be, I think it's going to be corn this year, if I'm right. I'll have to go down and check it.
Yeah, I wouldn't waste my time with that.
Okay. It's funny. I was when I listened to the podcast last week, and you were talking to Matt and everything. And so I got 2 bags of soy sauce, and I was thinking, I was like, he had mentioned in the podcast, the question was how much you put out. And he said, put half a bag and everything. And I was like, all right, cool. And then when, he'd emailed saying, hey, here it comes, put half a bag out. I said, great. So my question is for you guys, if I'm going to put a half a bag on each of these properties, where do you think I should put, put some to kind of see, what's coming in the area type thing.
Go ahead, Brian. You got the screen up.
Okay. So like Torn said, this is pretty interesting up in here, but you already know that they're traveling from this area down into here and this area up in here likely, right?
Yep.
So I'd personally try and intercept them maybe somewhere around in here.
Okay.
And then, you also said too that, they're bed down here, and you said there's heavy tracks here and here.
The tracks down low, but scrapes on the upper one. I mean, every small pine tree is scraped. I mean, huge scrapes.
Gotcha. So I would probably, it's tough because I don't know that you're gonna be hunting this a lot unless you have, the right wind for it. But I mean, you could have a pretty good opportunity to see something big in these areas.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, if you're gonna kill something down in there,
yeah,
you got a good chance of killing a slob.
Oh yeah.
Messing around in there, checking that whole bedding area.
Yeah. Okay. I'd put something here, maybe put some cameras here or here.
Okay.
And maybe split it between there and there. I'd be very interested. And then, it only takes one good day to get it down in there and get them.
Right.
Because if they're used to smelling everything that's coming around here and, skipping out of there without even being seen, that one day you can trick them if the wind is right. I'd be looking for it and waiting for that day to get down in there.
Okay.
And you'll catch them unalarmed.
Okay.
And then for your other property, where are we at? I thought that was funny. Pretty Boy Reservoir.
Yeah, I live on Pretty Boy Dam Road, which was interesting when we bought the house. I was getting ready to sign, and I was like, oh, what's the address? And I looked at my wife. I'm like, are you kidding me? And she's like, what? I'm like, the name. And she was like, oh yeah, it's named after the reservoir. I'm like, wait, I don't understand. She's like, the reservoir is actually named after a horse that supposedly drowned in it. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah. So anytime like when I have to talk to a company and say, hey, oh, what's your address? And I tell them, and I'm like, you can laugh. And then they immediately burst out laughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I would.
when Matt said when he said that he hunted Pretty Boy Reservoir, I was kind of, my ears perked up a bit. I was like, oh, I wonder where he's hunting. I mean, it's such a huge place. And he was saying different things, and I was trying to figure out, I was like, all right, well, I know a lot of the different areas because I have friends that hunt it. And he's like, yeah, there's never cars here. So I'm like, okay. I was like, it's got to be, an area, a complete closer to the PA side than it is, the south side of the reservoir, which I feel I'm on the south side closer to the dam.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'd be quite interested in this area right in here.
Okay.
I know it's a tough sliver.
Right.
But I'd be pretty intrigued on, see what's going on right in this area.
Okay.
And then also, I mean, if they're already coming out in here, it doesn't hurt.
Sure.
To, I don't put anything out where they're not already going.
Right.
Because once it's gone, they're going to stop going there and they're going to go back on the original paths they were on or the original routes they were taking.
Okay.
So I try and find good places like intersections or things like that where, you're already probably going to see a lot of good traffic, but you're just going to, get them more intrigued, maybe a little bit off. Like, say they are, coming through here and kind of missing your general area. It might not hurt to put it, somewhere around here, right where you're going to be hunting, because it's really not that far off. And then, oh, I'm already by the field and I can come out in here,
Right. Yeah. I mean, where the 1X is, they on the left side, where that sliver is, like I said, that's a breakthrough point between where the woods and kind of field opens up. But that's a breakthrough point where there's no trees on the ground, where it's a clean walkthrough, where that entire line going north, that is all, I mean, there are just trees down. It's like almost like a natural barrier for them to have to, I have to kind of find a weakness. Where can I go over? Where that corner is it's wide open. I mean, it's good 15, 20 foot opening that they can kind of slip through. So maybe put something closer to the opening, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, here's where I would disagree with you guys a little bit is I would go down a little bit, Brian, to the south. Like you originally mentioned, just to see if anything's skirting you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get a little bit closer to the creek just to see if anything's skirting you. Because you can always order another bag.
Sure.
And if this turns out that it's not working out or whatever, or let's just say you're getting really good deer traffic and you want to try to bring them up a little bit, well, then you can move the bag up farther.
Okay.
But I would be really curious to see if anything is just skirting around the stand, because you can't see down there, can you?
No.
Not
from that stand. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be putting a bag and a camera there.
Okay.
Let me switch out here real quick.
You got it.
That's where I would put it on that other property. I kind of agree with Brian. I get something down in here. You don't maybe necessarily need to put it down in here though. What I would do is I'd throw some cameras on those scrapes though.
Okay.
And then maybe somewhere up on this ridge.
Okay.
This bench here is where I'd throw it. And then obviously this section in here. And that's the 2-3 locations that I would concentrate on setting up cameras in this property.
Okay.
See, you might want to look at this ridge though. I'd spend some time through here and see what's going on. One thing that I've found on these ridges and them running
bring up your
oh, okay.
your screen.
Let me know when you can see it.
Oh, I probably have to stop sharing. There we go.
Got it?
Yep.
So, one thing that I've found that could be difficult about ridges like this sometimes, and this is where the climber will really help you out if whatever direction they're going, right? They're kind of traveling that general direction. It might be over here too, but whatever. They won't take the same path. A lot of the ridges that I walk around my area is there's deer paths at this contour level, there's deer paths at this contour level, there's deer paths at this contour level, and they're running different ones every single day, right, or every time they come through here. So that's what might make it difficult to hunt in this area and to really figure out something steady that they're doing. So, but that's also where the climber can really help you out too. You don't want to put a ladder stand here and they're running this ridge here, or, maybe one day they're up here, or maybe one day they're all the way down here.
Right.
So it could be a little tricky, especially during the rut, because, the does tend to follow their same general direction, but when they're being chased all around, who knows where along that general direction they're going to be coming through.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Now, I know we've seen them, and I'm going to quick screen share just to kind of.
Yeah.
So if you going up where you can see kind of that where those, the lines are really coming together, that's two separate ridges.
Yep.
And there's a valley that runs between it.
Yep.
We don't normally see them on the ridge close to the house. We see them on the far ridge moving along up towards the corner of that property. And David has 2 years ago during shotgun hit one, but when the rest of them took off, they shot out to the north side of the corner of the property. And he couldn't find, he thought his came south towards the swamp, which I went north, he went south, because I was like, well, I thought it went this way. It ended up on the upper ridge up here. 2 years ago, I had a camera up there, which I don't have marked. But it was closer to this red line up here. And there were a ton of deer that went by the camera, but they were all on the other side of the property.
Gotcha.
So, a lot of bucks, surprisingly. So, maybe if I, put something close up here, and then kind of, my biggest thing, I guess, if I'm going to hunt that area, it would be park at the house and then move. There's a fire trail that actually cuts between the two properties. And I don't think you can see it on the topographical now, or the satellite. Yeah. But there's a fire trail that kind of works between the two properties. I've met the homeowner here, very nice lady, and she says she sees deer all the time because her German Shepherd goes crazy when she sees it. So I guess it would be maybe go park at the house and then work along that property and then cut in. Or I didn't know what you guys thought on that. Like especially if I'm gonna put something out there like a camera and everything, if I'm gonna maybe work that side, that upper half of the property. I feel like sometimes it gets congested down near the swamp if all three of us are hunting.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I know that Chuck can't hunt bow season anymore because he can't draw a bow back because of his shoulder, but David definitely can. I mean, he's out there as much as possible. So, and he's on this stand up here.
So you're saying they're following those that kind of valley in between the two, all the way up to that. If you zoom out a little bit, there's a field up there. So when you see them, they're kind of, following that up into that field area?
Yeah, if they're up by David's stand, which is right here, they work their way along the ridge up here. Now, there is a monster tree, I don't have it marked here, that has a stand. I don't know how this guy got it up there. It has got to be 45, 50 feet in the air on this huge limb. I've climbed up to take a look at it, and I'm like, and I just looking down, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, no way. Yeah, it's just whoever, like I said, whoever had this property. I mean, like some of their stands that they've had up, some of them are great, but they're old. But this one, he sees everything. He can almost even see the field from where he's at. But they work along this kind of north ridge here, but they never go down into the valley to walk. I've never seen tracks or anything like that. I've walked this property with a buddy of mine, Rich, a couple times, just to kind of scout some stuff out. And, and he said the same thing to maybe hunt up in here since nobody else really does. But I have friends that have hunted up here and they're like, we've never seen deer up here, but I know I've seen them on camera like 2 years ago. So, maybe kind of, would I put something like right up top up there to, soy sauce up there in a camera?
I think it'd be worth it. I agree that to get there, I would maybe, I would park at the house and walk directly uphill to kind of where your X is.
Yeah.
And then I'd walk the top over, kind of to the corner there.
Okay.
And set something up there.
Okay. Whether it's go in the tree or on a ground blind.
Yeah, I'd try and get in a tree.
Okay. Now for that lower section, would that be better for a ground? I take it for a ground blind where we're seeing all those rubs, maybe something tucked into where all the Christmas trees are, or something coming down that alley.
Yeah, I mean, you could try it. I like getting in a tree as much as I can, but a ground blind can be effective if there's, if there's no good trees to get to,
Yeah, that's the big thing. There's there's one or two trees that are there, but even getting to them, if early season right now, if I could clear some stuff out, I can maybe get one or two cleared up enough where I could get a stand up there. But most of it's just starting to go down a hill. It's kind of a pain. And I don't know, like part of me.
It won't hurt it. I would probably set something on the uphill side, a ground blind there.
Okay.
Now, the ground blind, are you going to be taking it in and taking it out, or are you going to just leave it in?
I'll probably take it in and take it out. That's my own, and was one of my other concerns about smell and, and the whole hunting thing with smell and thermals and wind direction and everything. A lot of it's new to me. Some guys are like, yeah, I never wash my stuff, where other guys are like, I come back, I wash it, goes into like an ozone, container and this and that. And I'm like, all right, like I usually, if I've been sweating in it, it goes into, like, I usually throw it in the washing machine with baking soda just to get rid of everything else. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, for me as a new hunter and anybody else, it's like, I think it's those little things that we learn that are passed on to us makes the difference of whether we have a successful day or not, so, just for right now, just talking about the whole wind direction and thermals. I feel like I've been educated in years right now, and where to put things. It's just stuff that I didn't think of before.
No, we're definitely glad to help you out.
Yeah,
Torrin and I, we've been doing this for quite some time, and Torrin even knows a lot more about whitetails than I do. So, what I've come to learn has been a lot about, trial and error, and anything we can take the trial and error out for you guys and really help you start being successful, we're always happy to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice to fill the fridge instead of having somebody else be like, hey, here's some meat, being able to give back to them and everything.
For sure.
Game meat is just, it's so good. I just love it.
Yeah. I mean, we live off of it. I mean,
right.
we haven't bought any meat from the store in going on 5 years now. So,
oh my God, I can't even imagine like how much money you would save on that. And, just from, like I said, I'm very much a book knowledge and magazine knowledge guy, just seeing the difference in, calories and fat and protein from like, a boar that's or a pig that's raised on a farm versus a boar that you hunt. And it's staggering. It's absolutely staggering. Pheasants, turkeys, ducks, geese, whatever it is. It's so much better if you take it from the wild. And, it's nice to work for something. My wife always messes with me and she's like, hey, how is it just sitting in a stand? And I think that a lot of people that are non-hunters, they think for hunters, they just go out there and they want to kill an animal. And I've sat in a stand for like 2 or 3 years, but I've gotten to see such beauty.
Yep.
I told Torin this, the first time I hunted was 3 weeks before my mom passed away. And I was up in the stand and I got to hear, bucks going at it and just calling and just sounds that I'd never heard before. And when I talked to her later that day, she was like, how was it? And I was like, Mom, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. It was just watching the sun come up and just the wool kind of come alive and stuff. And then after she had passed, I remember getting back out there and it brings a sense of peace to you. And I think that a lot of people don't get that. They don't get to experience that without, really, even if you don't go and hunt, go outside and just go into the woods and listen. It's like, that's one of my favorite parts. Just, even if you see deer 200 yards away and, just watching them and going, all right, what are they doing? Why are they doing it?
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? I think that's the best part about being a new hunter, where I get to learn from that. And then kind of, being older, I'll get to pass it on to my kids but the more I figure I learn now, the more I get to pass on to, my kids or other people that are just getting into it and stuff. And that's one of the best parts about being part of this family, the Cervicide family, is, we're constantly always learning off of each other and passing that information and, and lifting each other up, and kind of like what men and women are supposed to do,
Yeah. Yeah. There's never too much information, and it doesn't matter how much experience you have. If you keep an open mind, you're going to learn something. I'm still learning things, and I'm always going to be learning things. And if you don't, you're probably not doing it right.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
and definitely agree with you on taking in the whole experience. It's really not just about killing an animal. It's the whole thing, just being out there, and there's something instinctual about, being in nature and seeing what's going on. And, it's cool to have animals walk past you and, they're just, they don't know you're there, and they're just living their life. That's something that they would be doing whether you were there or not. And to kind of just see the realness of what happens outside of the human world is fascinating. They don't care about all the things that we get caught up into. It's much more simple than that. And it's nice to, sit back and not have to think about all the stuff we do outside of being out in the natural world.
Yeah.
It's such a cool experience. And I'm so glad that that's, something that you take to heart and care about more than just going out there and, being successful. You already are in a sense.
Right.
Because you get such value out of what you're doing. And, like I said in the beginning, a lot of people, I think, would, they get so caught up in the task of hunting. I'm going out there to do this, that they don't take a step back and realize it's more than just killing the animal. And if they don't kill one, they just give up. If I did that for how many times I was unsuccessful, I would have quit a long time ago. But it's really not about that.
Right.
So that's really awesome. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's just I mean I just and that's the big thing I think with Cervicide of guys trying to teach and stuff, and you learn this and you go, hey, you know what, I made that mistake, last year. Okay, cool. Now I'm not that, and you don't know it's a mistake, and you get to learn it, and you're like, all right, now I get to apply something else, and it's that constant progressing forward, and the one of the things I've tried to teach my kids, like even when we go fishing and stuff, I'm like, hey, if we're taking this fish home, it's not taking home to, just discard it.
Yeah.
If we're going to take it home to, to have a meal with, whether it's a big fish or small fish. And it's that joy of, for me, it's the joy of watching them catch something. Like my daughter caught a 10-inch largemouth bass in a pond with a brand new fishing rod last week. And just, she's going crazy. And I'm like, and my son's like, well, I've caught a fish and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. I'm like, this is her first big fish that she's caught.
Yeah.
That's not, a bluegill.
Yeah.
And I know I'll be like watching guys on TV when they get excited for knocking down like a huge buck or something like that. Like that would be cool to get to kind of feel that adrenaline kicking in and stuff. And then going down to appreciate, okay, I'm not just going to take back straps out of the deer and toss it.
Yeah.
It's going to be taking that whole thing and making good meals out of it.
Oh yeah, man. I still get jacked up when I shoot a doe. So,
Right.
it's and Torin recently got me into fly fishing, and the first trout I caught on that fly rod, it took me back to, being a kid again for how excited I was. And then, the frustration too comes with it. Like the first 10 trout I caught, I couldn't grab. They got off the line, and I'm all frustrated, and I'm mad. I'm like cussing myself and all this stuff. And then that first one that you finally did it right, my God, the feeling is just unreal. And you're gonna get that. I'm telling you this year. And a lot of people like to cheat, and or not so much cheat, but they look upon others too much, or guides or whatever, and they take you out, they set you up, and the deer's pretty much tied to a tree or something. You're going to get so much more enjoyment for all the hard work you've put in these past 3 years when you finally make that connection and, go through the process. I'm glad you're not cheating yourself of that experience, because it's something amazing. And you don't get it by, getting lucky the first time, or, having someone else do all the work for you. That is earned by hard work, dedication, and perseverance. And, I'm excited for you.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a rush. It's going to be nice. It's going to be nice to be able to kind of share with everybody, like, hey, first year, whatever, and this is the meal I get to eat with it, whatever. That I know that's going to be the next thing, is be like, hey, here's the deer, here's the meal, whatever. It's funny you mentioned fly fishing, because I started that 3 years ago, and I'm so into it. It's disgusting. I started tying flies in January, and some of them are ugly and some of them are beautiful. And I caught my first rainbow 2 weeks ago. And it's usually all been browns. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was this tiny 6-inch rainbow. I didn't even feel him hit. And, and I started kind of reeling back, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I pulled him up. I was like, oh my God, it's a rainbow. And I told my buddy Jamie, who he's been fly fishing for 25 years. And I was like, caught my first rainbow. And he's like, how do you feel? I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it took me 5 years to catch my first. And I was
you might catch 100 rainbows.
Yep.
After this, but that's the one you're always going to remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you the most vivid story of the first deer I ever killed,
Right.
How many, I can't even count how many I've killed since then. But that first one is such an awesome experience that you'll never forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be an exciting year for, I know myself, a lot of the new members and stuff, just guys posting like, hey, I'm out, first day. I know I always have my GoPro, and I'm like, hey, this is Keith from Baltimore, and the Cervicide family. This is what's going on. This is where I'm at. This is the temperature, the wind direction, the barometric pressure, just, all that book knowledge stuff of like trying to memorize, like put out there and stuff, so that if it's a perfect condition, and I get to go back out, and it's the same thing. It's kind of like hoping that that's going to happen again. But guys learning, I mean, like I'm always watching the videos and listen to podcasts, and guys are always talking about there's very specific things that they do. Mm-hmm. And I think for just everybody across the nation, whether you're going for whitetail or, or boar or whatever, just that first one, or, hey, this is the one that I've been wanting, getting excited for each other. So
one of the things you'll do, Keith, is eventually once you start picking up on some of the little things, you'll start developing your own system as to what makes you successful.
Sure.
Like Brian does something probably a little differently than I do that makes him successful. And I do something that makes me successful that's a little different than Brian. Everybody makes and builds their own system, and it is centered around whatever your skill set is. Mm-hmm. Brian and I both are in relatively decent physical shape, so we're able to get away from pressure on public land.
Sure.
That's kind of built into our system. And I'm really intrigued and excited to see your process of building your own system.
Right. Yeah, I think it's gonna be an exciting year for me.
Yeah, you're gonna be on here teaching us in a couple years. So
yeah. I'm like, hey, these are all the mistakes you don't want to make.
Yeah, those are the best ones sometimes.
I mean, I went out. Was it 2 years ago? I went out and I used when I first started. I had all Under Armour gear. Being in Baltimore, living in Baltimore, it was kind of nice, and they give a discount for firefighters and stuff. And so I got this gear, and I remember I was out. It was the second to last day of the season. It was brutally cold. I had a thermos of coffee that I remember I don't even think I opened. It was more, I had it down the front of my jacket, just trying to stay warm. I lasted an hour outside. I still had cameras up. Sure enough, I leave. A month later, I come back, I check the cameras, and 15 minutes after I left, deer decided to show up. And I'm like, what did I do? Like, if I'd only stayed 15 minutes, but then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, they probably smelled that coffee in that container or something else on me. And I'm like, all right. And it just said to me, like, all right, I need cold weather gear. So I switched, I got gear from First Light, and it made such a difference in how long I could stay out there. And, just those little things of, I know a lot of guys are very particular about what they use. And, for me, it's, if this thing is bright orange and green and keeps me warm, and
you're solid.
Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like fly fishing. You might have the ugliest fly in the world. They're going to hit on it probably.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work for you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Brian's got to go to flying lessons, so I guess we'll shut it down.
Yeah, that's my other new learning experience. So we might be able to touch on that in a future podcast a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you guys are more than welcome to come down here, come hunt with me, come fly fishing. Literally 10 minutes from my house, one of the best rivers and best streams in Maryland with the gunpowder and stuff. Whoa. The door is always open, and it's open to pretty much everybody from the family and stuff.
Awesome.
Come down and hunt. So.
And same here. You said you did some bird hunting in the past too. I train bird dogs and do a lot of pheasant and upland game hunting. So come on out. We'll take the bird dogs out, and we'll send you home with a pile of them.
Hey, that's fine. You take all the feathers, and those can be made into flies. So
that's right.
That's right. So very good, guys. Thanks a lot. I appreciate all the tips and the advice, and we'll see what happens this year.
All right.
Awesome. See you next time.
All right. We'll see you guys. Thanks.
Later, fellas.
Later, fellas.